Psychotechnologies
Psychotechnologies
Live.
Live.
Welcome to a very special episode of Psychotechnologies Live. We have with us a very special guest, Trinley Goldenberg, who is artist formerly known as Matt. Matt and I go back actually in pre-Psychotechnology Live days when we worked on the reconsolidation something. Matt Matt has recently he has been at the Monastic Academy. He just came off retreat, and he has invented or designed or created or produced an IFS robot. So IFS is internal family systems, and a robot is, like an AI. So it's an AI therapy bot. We have yet to hear about its alignment, but let's hope for the best.
Chaotic neutral.
Chaotic neutral. Awesome. So Matt, maybe we should start with, so you're at the Monastic Academy, you just came off retreat. Like what? Like what are you doing?
Tell us about. What am I doing? This is a big,
why would you do
interesting
this?
question. Why would I do this? So when you say this, you're referring to where I live and how I spend my time. So I live at a Buddhist training center in very rural Vermont, and I spend. I'm doing a lot in the world. Obviously, I'm running a startup and advising startups. I'm coaching. I'm running other projects like this IFS bot, and I'm spending a significant portion of my time meditating and doing retreats and that sort of thing. And so, for a while, I was doing the full monastic schedule. It means you get up at 4:40, you chant, you do you eat in silence, you do the whole thing. I've since transitioned to where I'm doing less, but I'm still doing quite a bit of that schedule. So that's what you're referring to, just to give people the context.
Sure, yeah. I don't know.
Why would I do such a thing? Why would I do such a thing?
Maybe what inspired you to join the monastery as a starting
Starting
point?
with the tough questions.
No, it's a good question. And I want to give it a good answer because it's a good question. So I'm taking a moment.
That's beautiful. I'm just gonna silence.
Yeah,
Feel free to be with yourself, but we don't want to have that dead air. So sometimes people center with themselves or move into meditation. I'll speak, but you don't need to respond.
Okay. So I think that the true answer is that when I wasn't doing this, there was something deep and important missing from my life. So before I came here to Monastic Academy, if you had asked me, I would have said maybe I'm spiritual, but the way I thought about spirituality was looking at the things I valued and trying to become more in alignment with them, trying to improve and grow myself, trying to work through my emotional issues and traumas. And all of that was really fulfilling for many, many years. But there came a point when I didn't even know I was searching for it, but I was looking for something that was beyond myself. I was looking for something a little bit deeper in the way of spirituality and connecting to something deeper. And Buddhism is, of course, one path, or actually many paths, to do that. And so I didn't even know at the time. I thought I was just going to come here and I was like, oh, it's nice. They give me meals and I get to do manual labor and focus on improving myself in the Zen. No, that'll be great. But secretly, even to myself, I think I was actually just yearning for this thing that how to go beyond myself in my growth and not just make my growth all about myself.
So it's like a deep search for meaning. And
Yeah.
something reaching out to beyond your own self.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
That's pretty beautiful. I like it.
I feel like I want to ask, how is the journey? Like, are you getting meaning beyond yourself? Are you like just discovering it? Are you like, yeah, like, oh yeah, it totally makes sense, and now I'm deepening massively into it? Like, which stages of this journey are you up to?
Yeah, well,
you're finding
well, when I was on the schedule, especially when I first got here and I was on the schedule, I didn't really have a lot of other responsibilities. I was having, pretty frequent, very deep insights around that question of what it's like to go beyond yourself. Pretty frequent doesn't mean daily, but that'd be nice. It means, I have a good insight once a month, really deep insight into the nature of how my mind works and who I'm not and these sorts of things. And more recently, as I am quite much busier and not meditating as much and not doing as many retreats, it slowed down a little bit. The practice is really just helping me remember that exists and not get so caught up in my own stories. And occasionally I'll have a deeper insight or a big letting go, but not so deep as it was when I was really only focused on this and I didn't have a lot of other things clogging my head.
Do you see this as like a progression along the journey where like before you're looking for the insights and meaning you don't really have it, so you go to the training and then you start getting it, but then these other things start to show up and so you start to do that? Do you feel like that's like diverting from your path, or that is
it's a good question. It's a good question. So a few months ago I did a 3-month solo silent retreat.
Wow. 3 months
by yourself?
No, 3 months. Sorry, it's not quite 3 months. It was like 75 days, I think. So
okay.
I did this.
75 days massive.
It was long. I've certainly never done anything like that before. And I certainly got very deep and had lots of insights.
Were you being like punished for something where they made you go
Solitary.
and have fun?
It's actually very interesting how they do it here, because very, very hard to get a solo retreat. They don't just do it for everybody, and it's a sacrifice. So people, the other monastics, I don't know if monastic is the right word, but the other people here who are in the training, they get your food, they and put it in your meal. They communicate with you and make sure that you get any messages from people and write them down for you. Obviously, you're in bedding and housing that's provided for by the community, and they're not expecting anything in return except your practice. And so it's a big honor to be chosen for this, but it's also it's a big responsibility. So there is that aspect. If you want to talk about punishment, there's this expectation. There's this. It's like monks used to beg, right? And when somebody gives you food, it's with knowledge that they're trusting you, that you're trying to go beyond something and find a deeper wisdom, and they're trusting you to do that. And it's the same way here. And so, right. So I did this retreat, and I had I went really deep and realized some things. And one of the things I realized, so the interesting thing, I got to back up to explain this. Am I talking too much? I want to check if you guys want more.
Dude,
okay.
you're our guest. You can talk the whole time.
I trust you, and also this is like I want to go there. Wherever that's going, I want to go.
Okay, so I want to back up. So the interesting thing about Monastic Academy, and one of the reasons that drew me to it, is it's a Buddhist training center that's focused on existential risk, and particularly looking at the root causes and systemic things that create existential risk. One of which is self and mind, which is the the generator of existential risks in many, many interesting ways that we could talk about. So they encourage that here. They encourage the connection of what we call awakening, which is the going beyond yourself that I talked about, and responsibility, which is the engaging with the world in order to be of benefit and of service. And so when I was in this retreat, I was not working on my startup, which was a big sacrifice at that point because we had a limited amount of money and I had no idea. At some point we run out of money, and at some point we get more funding, and if one doesn't happen before the other, then the startup is done. And so I'm taking 3 months where somebody else is sort of running it and making things happen, but I can't be fundraising that.
Scary stuff.
So I did it because because the practice has given me the clarity needed to ensure that the things I'm doing can actually be beneficial. One, and two, I think it's valuable in its own right. It's becoming more walking along the Buddhist path is valuable in its own right, for its own sake. But while I was there, I recognized I really connected with why it was so important to be doing this project, how urgent the existential risks are. You were asking about alignment of the AI earlier, which is, of course, one of the urgent existential risks. And so I decided, okay, I've taken this 3 months to really sacrifice my responsibility for my awakening. And now I'm going to enter a period where I'm going to sacrifice my awakening for my responsibility, because I think it's important right now. And I'm at a place in my projects and doing things where that's important to me.
Very Mahayana.
So that's where I'm at. Yes. Very Mahayana. It's true.
Well, what does that mean?
Trinley, go ahead.
I'll try. So I should say that although I live at a Buddhist training center and I've listened to many talks on Buddhism, I don't consider myself even an amateur in terms of my knowledge of Buddhism, but I'll try and give my understanding. So Buddhism has had several large shifts. They call it turnings of the wheel in terms of how Buddhism is practiced. The first one is now called, I don't know, it wasn't called anything, it was just the first one. It was the first one, but it's now called Hinayana, which means the lesser vehicle. It does mean apparently lesser, not smaller, which is sometimes more politically correct term used, because it was named by the next turning of the wheel, which is the Mahayana tradition, which is the greater or bigger vehicle. And so the smaller vehicle means achieving awakening for yourself, meaning the world is awful and suffering is awful and I am getting out. And then Mahayana said that, well, the Buddha didn't just get out, he taught others. And there's actually a path where you can go beyond merely awakening, beyond that to be like the Buddha or a bodhisattva, which is a stage past awakening but before Buddhahood, where you can help others also attain awakening and also get out of suffering.
It's the vow for the benefit of all beings.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I will not myself get out and leave. I will return to the world and enlighten other people, and until everyone is enlightened.
Yeah. Lame.
But this is what he's done, right? So he's gone for the responsibility over his own awakening. So he's back to working on the startup, trying to help the world.
Yeah, I definitely have some thoughts on how I definitely wonder, is that like Maya or is that like Buddha.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, there's a
'Cause,
great
like,
mystery of like, if you're sacrificing your own awakening, is it just another trick to like put off
yeah,
awakening, or is it truly
Yeah.
you're doing benefit to other people and therefore it's worth it?
Mhm.
That's, I think, one of the open questions, unless Trinley has a deeper.
yeah. I'm curious what your, because like
Yeah.
I wouldn't do this path, so I'm curious about like like why do you think this is the correct path or the correct path for you?
Well, I can only when you say this path, what are you referring to?
The Mahayana
So, like,
sort of path.
yeah, like, so for me, it's I'm thinking of awakening as oxygen masks, and
Mhm.
like it sounds selfish to put on your oxygen mask first, but I think realistically, it's the correct decision.
Mhm. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and so I see this as awakening. Like, I don't necessarily like want help from the unawakened, right? Like, like half the time they're just going to make it worse. So like for me, I'm thinking like when you talked about how like everyone is sacrificing so that you can go into retreat.
Yeah.
Right. So like what I'm seeing is like you're like, okay, I've taken on this responsibility to awaken so that I can and these people make the sacrifice. And then when I come back, I can show them the path.
Exactly right. And so I failed that retreat. One way of looking at it is I failed that retreat.
Oh my God, you failed the retreat.
And
Does that hurt?
and all I had, it certainly hurts. And it hurts every day, right? You go every sit where you don't become awakened is painful in some sense, but it's also
is it like just like normal dukkha, or is it like no, there's like a
extra bite?
Yeah. Because that's like a lot of pressure, and I don't see it as being helpful.
Well, we can talk about this is other psychotechnology stuff. We can talk about some of my non-coercive motivation stuff as well. The tools I've created around that, but certainly. So one of the things that the teacher here, Soryu, talks about is the difference between healthy and unhealthy shame. And one way that you can tell the difference between healthy and unhealthy shame is that healthy shame should cause two things. One, it should cause a change in your behavior. And two, following the change in behavior, it should cause itself to disappear. And so if I'm feeling shame and then about how I practiced, and then the next time I don't change how I practice, then it hasn't been healthy shame. But if I change how I practice and I feel, oh, I did a really good sit this time, then the shame has done its job.
Right. So it's like a self-limiting,
and so we sort of
temporary state. Yeah.
Exactly. And so we sort of live in a culture where because shame is such a powerful motivator, it's been overused. And because of that, many of us justifiably are suspicious of shame in ourselves and when people are trying to shame us because it's been sort of overused and sort of like a blunt instrument that people use to
I'm very suspicious of people like that.
Okay, so
I'm not suspicious of people that naturally trigger my shame, but I'm suspicious when somebody's like doing it on purpose. It does feel.
So I want to go back. There was a good question you asked before we got off on this tangent about shame. There's something about, it's okay if I can't remember it, but we can just keep going. But there was something about like, the path. Well, how could you do this Mahayana path? What about the oxygen mask thing?
And some of this is like to bring out the ideas, not like saying you're doing wrong or anything. Like it's more.
No. I wasn't perceiving it that way. So, by the way, the lights in here just changed randomly. So if I can see it brighter or darker, that's just happening.
Nice. That's an interesting psychotech. We get to later.
Yeah, exactly. It changes with how with my EEG state. So anyway, so the way, so after that retreat, I had the clarity I had. And the clarity was that there's little time, and I will keep practicing. I'm not going to stop practicing completely. And I think with the clarity I have, it's clear to me that there's very little time. And if I really want to have an impact, I need to just go on this, just go on this, these projects, and make them happen. And one of the great things about being at Monastic Academy and helping, for instance, I'm very involved in it. I'm the executive director of the broader organization, CEDAR, that runs all of these different centers. The thing that I can have here is, as I'm working on my projects and continuing, of course, to practice, I'm not going to let go of my practice completely, but me doing that enables other people to practice. And those are the people that I go to when I have a question and I'm not sure if I can trust myself around these projects. So there's two paths you can go out of as you sort of graduate from the monastic training. You can go down the layperson path and try and impact the world like I'm doing, maintain your practice, but your focus is on mostly impacting. You go the renunciate path, where you are mostly spending your time in practice. And I can go to those renunciates and benefit from the fact that they're making the sacrifice they're making, and I'm making the sacrifice I'm making. Both of them are a sacrifice, and we can sort of benefit from each other in that way.
It's like a specialization almost.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And so that's interesting, because like the way I'm seeing that now is it's not like the individuals are awakening, it's the Sangha is awakening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so
yeah.
the Sangha has all the things that it's an awakened community.
Collective, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm curious.
I would hope.
I don't think you mentioned which practices. So you did 75 days of what? Other than
yeah. So it's a good question. So I was doing, at the time I was doing 3 practices. So I'll just say them. The first one was an energetic breathing technique that my teacher Soryu often recommends, and specifically I was doing the energetic breathing technique to move through what he calls the Jade method, which is sort of his description of connecting to a motivation larger than yourself and then moving through the jhanas. And so we chant that every morning, and I was going through that process. And I was using that is sort of a overarching framework that many techniques can fit into, as long as they have a focus space and concentration. Techniques can fit into this framework. And so one of the techniques was this energetic breathing, moving through the Jade method. Another one I was doing sometimes, it's called tranquil wisdom insight meditation, which is it's a sort of more modern, very heretical compassion practice. And then I was also working with something called the wholeness work, which is also a more modern technique. And so I'd basically be sitting with this energetic breathing. And then when I got stuck, I would switch to one of these other two techniques to break me through, and then I would move back to the energetic breathing. And so it was very interesting because they really complemented each other in ways that I didn't expect, and they're all very, very, very different techniques. So it was like they could all compensate for each other in really interesting ways.
And as a follow-up question, the rest of the monastery that you're with, are they also doing this technique, or they have other ones also in the repertoire?
Yeah. So there's no the training method here doesn't prescribe a technique. There are we often our teacher did some training in Rinzai, and so sorry,
Rinzai Zen.
Rinzai Zen, that's right. And so some of the techniques he teaches us are based on that training, and he also did a lot of work and helped develop the unified mindfulness stuff from Shinzen Young. And so he also teaches some of those principles and techniques. And so I'd say the overarching thing is that Jade method that we chant every morning. Many or most people are trying to gradually move through that, but there are many techniques that can fit into it, and we don't prescribe a particular technique. And the unified mindfulness gives us a way to talk about techniques. Any technique, and so you can sort of fit it into a framework and know how it works and know how to work with it.
Okay,
cool.
Yeah, I'd like to spend some more time here with the psychotech, given the name of our channel and our interest. I think I'd like to just like start with the Jade and sort of break that down, and like what is it? Why do you do it? How does it work?
Okay.
I am sort of confused just in general of this approach, but maybe more clarity will come when we break down the individual psychotechs.
Okay. So I'll start with the Jade method. So the Jade method.
Are you like authorized to teach this method, or are you?
Certainly not. I mean, I don't think anybody would get mad at me for talking about it, but I definitely wouldn't consider myself like qualified to teach it.
Okay, so we're getting a like off the back of the truck, like side version.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. No.
Like,
I want to
reframe.
No, I want to reframe.
So
I want to reframe. This is like you're on our podcast. You're psycho. You do Psychotechnologies, and you're sharing like your practice, your study.
Exactly. So the Jade method starts with connecting to this question, which is, how can I give my body, mind, and life completely to great love for the benefit of all beings? And so when I was on my retreat, I would chant this question over and over, and the question eventually changed to something like, what is compassion? Or like, how do I let go? Those are all the same question somehow. And
so this is like, you're starting like, you're trying to like, what does this mean? Like, exactly.
It means that the thing that is driving your practice is this desire to be of benefit to the world, and to be a conduit for love into the world. I don't know if either of those actually capture the thing, but the question itself is obviously the best way to capture it, which is, how do I give my body, mind, and life completely to great love for the benefit of all beings?
Well, are you not already love, or like, does your existence not verify itself? Like, do you need to? Well,
there's a contemplation here, right?
Yes. I think that's right. Is that maybe that's the case? I don't know. I haven't certainly don't experience that myself as that a lot of the time.
Okay. So it's like coming. So you have like this. You have this desire, like to Like, is this coming from desire? Is this coming from like, is there an ulterior motive to giving it to love? Like, are you hoping to accomplish something, or is it the love, like you want to be part of love and you want to give, and like that's just like who you are or what you want or something?
Yeah. Well, there's different ways to look at it and think about it. For me personally, when I use my other, so sometimes I will, I'll go into a sit and notice I'm resisting meditating, and then I'll go into one of my other psychotechnologies, reconsolidation hierarchy, and I will figure out, okay, what is happening here? What do I actually want? What am I resisting? And integrate that, and then I can go deeper into the meditation. And so through that work, it's become very clear to me, something that's become very clear, that yes, this giving myself complete love is something I do deeply, truly want. That yes, this reification of self does cause lots of suffering of myself and others. And so that's something I've sort of verified experientially and really looked at in many different ways. I've thought about it. I've felt into it. I've looked at metaphors, and really come to a deep realization of myself around that.
That's really cool.
So that's
like from this solid place of like, you're like, yes, I want love. I want to connect with love. Like this is
is what I want.
As
solid as I can be. Obviously, if I suspect if I was completely and utterly solid on that, the Buddha said, if you practice completely for 1 week with no gaps, then you will become enlightened. And so I clearly haven't created the truly deep motivation to do that. But
okay, so there's like some flickering.
To the level I can really access right now and have access to right now, I believe that this is the direction to go.
Okay.
So that's I'm
feeling this energy.
Yeah.
This desire.
Like
I feel your motivation. I feel where you're coming from.
Yeah. So that's step one of the Jade method. You just connect to this desire. And what they say in the chant is that the ability to answer this question, fully and completely, gives the practice meaning and power. Okay. And so if I'm just doing the technique, that's one thing. But if I'm doing the technique from this place of giving my body, mind, and life completely to great love for the benefit of all beings, then there's meaning and power to the technique I'm doing. So having connected to that motivation, the next step in the Jade technique is...
Are you feeling it now?
Yeah, to some extent.
Okay,
to some extent. Like I said, I would often spend the whole time when I was on my solo retreat just doing that. And so having done that, the next step is to correct the posture and the breath. And so there are 5 points of posture and 5 points of breath that you do in the method. So the first method, and the way that you chant it, you do body, breath, body, breath, body, breath, like that. So I'll just go through this real quickly. So the first one is body stable, breath calm. So body stable means getting really rooting yourself. If you're in meditation cushion, really rooting down your tailbone and really rooting down your legs like you're sort of gripping a horse to the cushion. And then the breath one is breath calm. And so as you're breathing, you want to be bringing calm to that breath. Often that calm is on the in-breath. You just sort of relax into the in-breath. So that's the first one. The second one is, no, wait, that wasn't the first one. I gotta go through the chant. Body. So the next one, I don't know if I'm doing this in the right order, but I'm just gonna go through. Because the order doesn't actually matter as long as you hit all 5 points of each. Next one is body. It's body rooted, breath calm. Body rooted into the earth, and then Body stable, meaning back and forth. Body stable. Breath energetic. Breath energetic. So you want your energy, I'm not doing this in the right order, that's okay. You want your breath both calm and energetic.
Yeah.
Both calm and energetic. Body open. This refers to now your body centered. Body centered. This refers to where you are in terms of back and forth, side to side. Make sure you're centered in your posture. Breath centered. That means the breath is rooted in the belly. Body open. That means that's referring to your chest now, coming forward while your tailbone is still rooted back. So they're sort of working against each other. Breath playful, meaning the breath doesn't get on a track. You can change it, you can shift it, you can play with it. It has a life of its own. And then body tall, meaning that the root right here is up in the air, and then breath whole, meaning that the breath is accessing the whole body. And so if you have all 5 of these points or all 10 of these points down very good, it's very, very hard to get distracted. Distraction is often a result of not having the energetics of your body set up, and so energy gets caught in your head and you get distracted. And so you can return to this if you get distracted during your sit, you can return to this section and then move forward from there. You're like, oh, I'm distracted, there must be something up with my posture or breath. So that's the next part. And also in this part of the setting up part is you rid the hindrances and you rouse I forget the word that's the opposite of the hindrances. But you rouse the opposite, the motivation, the powerful
motivation.
Yeah. So you rid want, rouse freedom, you rid hate and you rouse love, you rid stupor and you rouse energy, you rid worry and you rouse faith, you rid subtle doubt and you rouse great doubt. So now you've done your preparation, you've set up your breath, you've set up your posture, and you've set up your sort of internal state. Then you start moving through these four levels of concentration or types of concentration. So the jhanas. So at first, you settle your awareness on the focus space. And again, lots of techniques have different focus spaces, but you settle your awareness on the focus space and lay it on the focus space. So your awareness should be at the focus space. You shouldn't be aware of the focus space from somewhere else. And if you get distracted, then you use your thoughts to bring it back. Oh, I'm distracted. I should come back to the focus space. If distracted, you think you bring it back.
Do you have
and so the goal in this section is to stay on the focus space. So if you're aware of this focus space, you're getting the point. If you're not aware of the focus space, you're missing the point. And the other goal in this section is to have fun. So you're here, you're having fun by using thinking to bring your attention back to the focus space. So that's the first jhana is that. Did you have a question?
I know.
Oh, I was gonna say, do you have this on like cue cards or like charts or something?
Well, we chant it every morning, so you end up memorizing it.
Okay, because I would hate to be there 2 weeks in.
What's step 3?
Process.
Yeah. Well, that's why you chant every morning, is that it's a very quick way to memorize something. And so then the next stage is you start enjoying the challenge of self-control by bringing your attention to the focus space and laying it on the focus space. Spread the joyful exhilaration of fun and integrity through your whole body. And in this stage, attachment to things of the world becomes obsolete. And so in the chant is put, so one no longer feeds structures of injustice. So now you're enjoying the challenge of self-control and spreading it through your whole body. And attachments to the world are becoming obsolete. That's the second jhana. Third one. Spread I'm slipping my mind. Yeah. Okay.
You only repeat it every morning. I feel like we've taken it out of order. We've slowed you down. We screwed up your method.
Yeah.
No.
There's definitely
okay. So
yeah.
So but what happens in the next stage? You let go more and more, and you're in the. Let me see if I can just find something.
Is it that link? Is that there's like a Jade method overview on the
yes, this is great. This is great. Okay, perfect. Yes, this is it. So in step 3, you enjoy the challenge of self-control. We went over that. Step 4, the one we just went over, you abandon thinking. Okay. No more thoughts in that one. And in that step, you stop fighting against oneself and others.
Is that meant to be linked to second jhana?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Then we've got third and fourth.
Yeah. So then third is where you abandon self. And you spread the bliss of directly knowing oneness and freedom from hope and fear through your whole body.
Mm-hmm.
And in this stage, it's said that one's mind is dead. And then the fourth jhana is where you abandon attachment. You spread the peaceful honesty of no pleasure and pain and unhindered clarity due to perceptual non-interference. So while in this stage, through no friction, one's mind is gone. And then from this place, having asked the question, how can I give my body, mind, and life completely great love for the benefit of all beings? In the first step, in the last step, you can try to answer the question. You can affirm, negate, or question to try and work on or answer this question. So I've only really, when we talk about jhanas and how far I've gotten, I've only really gotten through to step 6 once, where I, got through the fourth jhana and then had a moment of blankness, or I don't know if what some people call cessation, but then I did not, unfortunately, become awakened after that experience. But so I can only speak to this from limited experience. I don't have a lot of experience going through this whole method. So that's the method.
Cool.
Yeah, this looks pretty cool.
This is, I mean, the thing that I'm interested in is this is very different to many other schools of meditation, and the correlations of things in that he's aligned up to the jhanas is different to what I've seen done in other places.
Yeah, it does have a lot of the aspects of stuff that we were doing. It just does it kind of differently.
there's a very particular sequence like that. Like we were sitting with you doing this posture and breath thing, and I'm like, oh, this is quite a rigid. Like I feel very like firm. Like this is like, oh, I'm gonna get tired if I sit like this for 3 hours. Like it doesn't have a like a lazy, comfortable thing to it. It's got a very much like, oh no, it's like sitting up with full energy. Like let's do this.
Yeah, that's exactly right. This is a very in the place we're at now, and he might change his teaching as the Sangha changes, but he often emphasizes the energy of the practice and the energeticness of the practice.
It's interesting. It's interesting because like so like I do love like the Monastic Academy does this like meditate into your body or breathe into your body, which I love. Like I think you guys do that really well. Like there is definitely like a full body sense with that. But then it's also interesting to like sort of like tackle it. I think a lot of the times the like sort of like do it versus like a lot of the times it's like a lot of the stuff is like the other like a lot of the other ways people do it is sort of like you're just sitting. At least like the way I kind of like to do it is like I'm sitting waiting to be enlightened, and then as stuff comes up, I'm just sort of dealing with it, like purifying or whatnot, or letting go. And then I know that the baseline state is enlightenment, so I don't actually have to do anything to get there.
Yeah, and that's certainly this sort of just sitting. It's very, very Zen style of practice. Certain aspects of Zen, of course, emphasize that more or less. Other aspects of other types of Zen have very, very technical practices that they do. There is, one of the techniques that Shinzen talks about and that we often practice in our guided meditation is the do nothing technique. And even our do nothing technique is not, there's still a little bit of, the way we do it is that every time you just do nothing, and every time you're aware you're doing something, every time you become aware of an intention, you drop the intention.
Yeah.
And so that's certainly one way you practice. And so that is in that case, you still do have a focus space, which is doing nothing. But that type of practice, the type of practice you're talking about is unique from other practices in that there's no intentionality, right? Which is a fun way to practice, but it also
it's weird. It's no intentionality, but it's also not no intentionality. Because like if you're not doing the practice, there's no intentionality. But if you're doing the practice, the intentionality is like the no intentionality. But
exactly.
But then you eventually want to drop that as well.
Exactly. And so that's one challenge of this. And the other challenge, of course, is that you don't have a lot of mindfulness, so you don't notice what you were doing and you just get distracted, slack off.
I feel like
so there's a lot of benefits too. Yeah.
I have kind of a place where I feel like this sort of practice becomes really obvious. So occasionally I've watched a UFC fight, and there's two like really quite skilled professional athletes trying to like punch each other, right? And as I watch, I feel like my body tenses up and I'm like, hurt. Like I'm not in the fight. I'm like all the way over here on the other side of a computer screen on the other side of the world. And yet my body is still like trying to like do some sort of like tensing up. And the instruction to like not like if you notice yourself doing something, relax again. Is like I consistently have to like re-relax my body. Like really, really surprising to me that even though I'm so far away, there's some part of me that is invested in or like participatory in the energetic experience of their fight. And then I have to like non-do. I have to be like, no, we're gonna not do that. We're gonna like let go of the tension that I'm building in my body.
Yeah, exactly. It makes me think of Michael Ashcroft's take on the Alexander technique, where like sometimes you think you like have to like I could just like stand up or I could like do standing up, and there's like extra effort or something. There's like, yeah, it's an interesting thing. I haven't explored this too much, but it's an interesting.
And ideally, I want to be traveling through the world with effortlessness, because that's pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And one way to describe enlightenment is a state without tension, and so one way to get more towards there is simply to notice every time you're creating unnecessary tension. Again, I'm talking out of my ass right now because what do I know? But there we are.
You know, 75 days of silent meditation. You know, a couple of things.
Yeah.
Well, like
I wouldn't want to completely dismiss the knowledge and wisdom of your time, even if you don't want to claim any attainments. There's still something.
Yeah, sure.
Like there's almost like a self-disrespect in the like, oh, I definitely don't know anything.
Maybe. It didn't feel like it was coming from a place of disrespect, but
it feels like if you didn't know anything, then you shouldn't have gone on retreat. You know what I mean?
Right. That's true. Or maybe I should really go on retreat.
No, I don't think so.
Or maybe if you don't know anything, then you don't need retreat because you've already achieved the goal.
No, I meant like if somebody shows up to Monastic Academy, they're like, "Oh, I heard you guys do like stuff. I don't know what any of this is." They're like, to go on retreat, and then like I feel like that's not a good onboarding. Like,
that's true. Yeah, that's true. I knew enough about how to practice that I could take advantage of that time.
Right.
But I didn't know it. I didn't know enough about how to practice that I could take full advantage of that time and become enlightened. So there we are.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
And so were you expected to become enlightened? And also, what do you mean by enlightened?
There's a lot of things the word enlightened mean, but like,
or like awaken. Are you using
give us some like heuristics?
Yes. So the first answer is yes. That is what you are expected to do on a solo silent retreat. As far as I know, everybody's failed at Monastic Academy since we've been here. But
wait, what?
Maybe.
Wait, nobody's been enlightened from the Monastic Academy.
I think he's setting
solo retreat from solo
like,
retreat that I know of. Full enlightenment. That's right. There have been people who, to the knowledge that I know may have achieved stream entry, but nobody has attained full enlightenment from a solo silent retreat that I know of here. And I could be wrong. Maybe somebody did. They wanted to hide their light for some reason, or I didn't hear about it. But yeah.
Okay. And how long have you been there?
I've been here about 2 years now.
Okay, so 2 years and you've never heard of anyone getting enlightened.
It's a very high bar.
It's a very high bar. It's a very, very high bar. In terms of
full enlightenment.
So I would say that there's a much higher bar here. So if you look at somebody like Daniel Ingram, and you took his definition, I would say there are probably people here who have reached that state.
Okay.
But in terms of the state we use, in terms of the
he claims the arhat
standard we use here.
He claims he's an arhat.
Yeah.
That's a technical
But if he were here, I do not think that that he would be considered an arhat given the standard we have here. And I could be wrong. I don't want to. I'm talking from very, very limited knowledge here, but that's my understanding of things.
So maybe it would be helpful to describe this like it's a high bar. What is it?
Yeah. What is the bar?
And knowing that like Daniel Ingram describes a different thing and claims it, but like what do you describe as the high bar that you're claiming is difficult to get to, and also where you're going, right, or trying to go?
Yeah. Well, it's a good question.
Can you give us some approximates of?
It's really hard for me. I don't understand awakening as much as I would really like to.
Can you maybe like name historic figures that might have?
Or like how would you know if you hit it, right? Like maybe you were awakened and you're like, nah, I'm doing this other thing, go away.
Yeah, well, the only way I would know it is to go to my teacher or a teacher that I trust who has the ability to determine that, who maybe has transmission or something similar, and be verified by them. That's the only way I would know how to do it. I might, there's certainly things that happen to me, and I'm like,
well, like after retreat, you check, and there's like a very
exactly, yeah, exactly.
But check what? This doesn't make any sense.
Okay. So I see what you're asking. So like, what would I expect to happen internally? So in terms of the first stage to awakening, stream entry, that's much easier to talk about. Is I would have still hard to talk about because not quite right, but
can you give us like the cluster that some people are like this and others are a bit like that, but like the general cluster?
So one way to talk about stream entry, and again, I'll stop caveating, but just know that in my head, I'm always like, what am I talking about? Just
to give context and disclaimers. So you're not coming from a place of a fully enlightened being who's telling everybody what to do.
I'm not. So any of these places where I'm talking about attainments, I don't claim any attainments, and so I'm necessarily speaking from ignorance when I talk about that.
Right, and you're talking from like your practice, the way you're trying to do.
Yeah,
and this
exactly.
is like a learning environment, not a declaration environment.
Yeah, exactly. So stream entry is the realization of non-self, is in my understanding. Realization of non-self, meaning that you see directly something like how you are fabricating yourself and everything else in the moment, and you see it directly in a way that sticks. So you always are aware of this fact in some way. So that's my understanding of stream entry.
That's so interesting. So in my mind, there's the three doors being impermanent, unsatisfactory, and no self. And this is sort of out of Daniel Ingram's work, but the first pass through one of the three doors that really like you describe it, sticks, any of the doors, is a stream entry, or can be perceived as, or like talked about as a stream entry. That
would make sense to me. But my understanding is that it needs to be
the no okay, cool.
No, not that it needs to be no self. It could be any of those three. That seems fine. But it needs to be it's not just that you see it. I've had certainly glimpses of that in my practice where I see it very clearly, but it doesn't sort of stick.
Interesting.
All right, let's
so like one of the
so full awakening.
No.
As far as
I
I
want to jump to full awakening. I want to go.
Well, I don't know. So we've been going through the
Fedder's model, or
what do they call it? The boomies, the 10 boomies.
That's
which start before stream entry and go far past stream entry and far past awakening. But I don't. I came in halfway through that, and I don't really know them too well. I don't really know any of these maps too well. I just try to practice and go towards the goal. And so I'll talk about stream entry, which would be one goal I'm aiming for, and I'll talk about awakening, which would be another goal. And I can't really talk about a lot of other steps and stuff in between. But full awakening, one aspect of this is that the way we define it, the way the Buddha defined it, is that the taints and the hindrances are fully eliminated. Meaning you no longer have stupor, you no longer have hatred, and the taints are greed, hatred, and ignorance. You no longer have any of those three things. And ignorance is ignorance of the Dharma, I want to say. I forget exactly. No, it's ignorance of the Four Noble Truths. Ignorance means ignorance of the Four Noble Truths. And so you no longer have any greed, you no longer have any hatred, you no longer have any ignorance of the Four Noble Truths, and you no longer have these hindrances. They're completely eliminated. The only thing, you may still have some tiny whiff of personality at that point. Your personality hasn't been completely eliminated, but that's full awakening. And I think, and you don't have, you've gone through all the aspects of dependent origination. So you no longer have sense perception. You no longer have, or you no longer cling to sense perception. You no longer cling to thinking. You no longer cling to self. Any of those links of dependent origination are gone. Yeah. So that's my understanding. It's very, very bad and poor, and I probably not only misrepresented because I don't have direct experience, but I also probably misrepresented doctrine. So I apologize for that, but here we are.
Don't worry, we won't tell anyone.
Can we talk about I feel like, just given like that you're trying to let go of attachment. I'm noticing, I think there's an attachment to
not getting it wrong or something.
Not getting it wrong. Like I do respect that you try to get it right, but like there's a lot of this, you know what I'm talking about? Like there's a lot of this, like over and over again of telling people that you don't have it right versus like being in the process of trying to figure it out.
Yeah, well,
would you say that's an attachment to like a ritual or something?
Probably there's some attachment in it. Well, there's almost everything I do, there's some attachment in it. And so that's an easy answer. And the question, the real question is it serving me? And I don't know. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't.
Well, I think the answer is oh, sorry, Elliot, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I want to try ask this question in a slightly different way that might be more clear. So one of the 10 fetters is the fetter of doubt. And my question to you is, do you still have doubt around whether there is such a thing as the spiritual path, or whether you've done anything at all with all of your practice? And it's okay if it's a yes. It's just like, do you feel doubt?
Do I have doubt around? Okay, so I don't have any doubt that there is. I don't think that there's no. I think there's some there. I do have doubts around what that is. I have doubts around are the same traditions pointing to the same awakening? Are they pointing to totally different things?
That just sounds like an interesting question.
Doubt.
From my perspective, I think of doubt as like, I went and I meditated and I saw a thing, and then I got off of the cushion, and then I went to go tell my friends about it. I was like, wait, did I really do that? Or like, I'm not sure.
No, I don't have that, but so the deepest doubt I probably have that still haven't worked through is, and when I say work through doesn't always necessarily mean getting rid of it. Sometimes it can mean validating or accepting. So the deepest doubt is, do I actually want to be awakened?
Oh, that's cool. That's an exciting
because that is so like when I was reading the Twin book, I can't think of the name of it right now, but Twinkle Wisdom Insight Meditation, there's a book on it, and they go through these their versions of these stages.
Is that book the Buddha's Map by any chance?
No.
Sure. Okay.
That might be another Twin book, but this one is The Path to Nibbana is this one. Is the name of this book. So, but they go through their version of these stages, and they talk about at one point becoming dispassionate. And I read that and I was like, do I really want to be dispassionate? I really like being passionate. And like, I don't know, it's like clinging to things can be nice, and like if sense perception is completely gone, do I really want that? Or like, if like, do I want to stop wanting it? Like that's probably the deepest doubt I have around this stuff.
Dude, that is amazing. I'm feeling love now.
It's like truth of the human condition of like, do I really want to give this shit up?
Yeah,
Exactly.
I feel love for you. And I'm not saying you should like go one way or the other. I'm just like, but just like you coming up with this and you're like, oh, these are like genuine things of like, I'm supposed to be doing this, but what about that? Like, it feels very alive.
Yeah, and it really comes up in the practice when your practice is going well. And there's just this, for me, I can get this just this terror of obliteration of being, of the thing that I'm clinging to, which of course in the Buddhist way of seeing is an illusion. There's no ground, there's nothing you can cling to. But the thing that I'm clinging to, if I let go of it, what will I hold on to? That'll be what will happen. And there's just this terror that can come with it. And this, so when I had that experience that I was talking about, where I had what seemed to be like a cessation, when I came out of that night, I was probably, my practice was so deep, I was so energetic, I was so with the breath. And then the next day, I was like, fuck this place, like fuck the practice, like why am I focusing on getting rid of myself? I've worked so much on myself. It's like stomping around during like the walking practice. It was like there's just this part of me that was like, hell no, that was scary. That was like close to like letting go of everything, and that's so scary. Like, yeah.
Oh.
I
So
mean,
you were like there at the precipice, and you saw the terror of the void, and like that energy like came into you and moved you, and
yeah, and it's the hard part about that is that there's in Buddhism there's this god Mara, who is the god that he's the god of made things or something. Everything that people make is his domain, and so he wants people to stay in delusion. So when you are getting distracted, you can say that's Mara distracting you. And so the thing about Mara is that the level of insight you achieve without going all the way is the level of delusion that Mara can bring. So if there's a way that you got really, really far in the path, and then you don't go all the way, then your system, and you get scared and you back off, your system now knows how to avoid you getting there in that way in the future.
I have that problem.
Yeah, I have this saying that your shadow has all of the capacities of yourself, but like it's kind of like, if you think I'm such a great person, then so is your shadow thinking that. Like, oh yeah. Shadow can do that too. Very sneaky of it, but it has access to all of my resources in the same way. I also really like a quote by Chongrang Trungpa, who said, "The scary thing is you're falling, and that's terrifying. But the good thing is there's no ground. Like you're never actually there's nothing to hit. You're just like you're just in free fall. You're just like." There was this kid. This movie
says that it's not the fall that kills you; it's the hitting the ground. Right. So if you just fall forever, you're fine.
Yeah.
There was this this movie Spy Kids like 10, 20 years ago, and there was like 13-year-olds in like spy gear and spy movies. Anyway, they go to like invade the enemy's like volcano lair, and the enemy has like an infinite falling volcano lair. And they're like hanging in midair as like things are rushing past them. And like 3 hours later, they're still in this like infinite trap that they fell into. And I feel like it's kind of like that. Like it's like falling. There's nothing, you're not going to hit anything. It's just scary at first until you're used to it. And they're like, by then they're like kind of bored. They're like, is this going to end? And eventually the henchman comes along and puts them in a cage or whatever. Like, It's that falling without a ground that initially is scary.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Like to me, I'd like to validate like that you're having these experiences, or at the very least that you think you're having these experiences, right? Which is itself an experience.
Without claiming any intentions. We're noticing you're seeing these things, these experiences on the path.
Yeah, exactly.
So do you feel also like validated? Like, do you feel like, yes, you are doing this?
Yeah, these days I wish my practice was a little deeper. I find it very hard to, I'm doing, lots of things that require lots of thinking these days. And I get in and I sit down and it's all I can do to just clear my mind out a little bit. And so that's great and it's helpful. And I do wish I was really getting to the deep states I had been when I was not doing all these other things. And I really would like to take a longer retreat soon, maybe there's a 2-week one coming up in March that maybe I'll do and really get back to those. So that's the best answer I can give to your question.
That's really interesting. I like to contrast it with what you said earlier with, like, it felt like before you're like, there's 2 paths. I can do stuff in the world, or I can like try to achieve enlightenment. And now you're like, well, actually what I want is to have like some balance between the two.
Well, that's right. So the fact that is the case, and I'm allowing that to happen, is because I've made this choice to go in one direction. And I still want to, spend a little bit of time going into some of these deeper states. And I think that there's stuff sort of accumulates that over time, and I really want to just clear it out and go deeper and see these deeper things.
So I've got a really interesting question here to bring in your other work. So you've sort of described 2 motivations, and one way we work with this is with internal family systems therapy. And so I know you're doing other work with internal family systems, and you've got the IFS bot, which sounds super cool. But have you ever looked at, first of all, do you do IFS in your meditation as well? And second of all, like, have you looked at these 2 drives within your internal family systems and like had a conversation with them?
Okay, so good questions. So first of all, I'll say that I wouldn't really, I made this IFS bot, but I wouldn't actually consider myself an expert on IFS. Here I go again, claiming non-expertise. I would consider myself an expert.
I'm not into that. Let's see if we can cut that from the.
I would consider myself an expert on parts work and in general, emotional processing, using the parts model, but IFS in particular, and the particularities of that model, I don't know. My bot knows, but I know only a little bit about this idea of exiles and things like this. So in terms of parts work and working with these drives as parts, and the way I view parts, it's a convenient way to think about different things. I often view parts at different scales. I'll often switch when I'm viewing as a part halfway through. Sometimes people will be like, well, I'm not sure that's a part. I'd be like, I don't care. Just treat it as a part. Doesn't matter. Like, so I have looked at, I haven't looked specifically at this. That's not true. I have looked at this specifically responsibility versus awakening thing. And the place I came to is right now I'm focused on responsibility to the extent that I accept that, at least for now, where I'm at right now, I'm very unlikely to get awakened. And if things continue, then I'm very unlikely to get awakened in this lifetime. And I don't, in terms of my beliefs, my introspective felt beliefs, I don't really believe in multiple lifetimes. But in order to sort of be here, I step into that way of seeing and that way of believing, where there is reincarnation in multiple lifetimes as I'm here. And as when I got lay ordained, I really had to step into that, because when you get lay ordained, you are committing to the path for the rest of your lifetimes. So anyway,
That
so
I'll be honest, but go on.
Doesn't seem what?
That doesn't seem ethical.
Ethical.
To like sign up your future self for something that it maybe didn't consent to because it wasn't necessarily here when you signed it up, or something like that.
I was thinking more for the people like kind of like putting that on you, but yeah, like I guess that.
Well, I don't think anybody is putting that on me. It was my decision.
But you don't like, it's not really informed consent, because you don't know what it's like to be reincarnated.
Well, I mean, I must. If in fact reincarnation is real, then I must know what it's like.
I mean,
see any way that this would be my first lifetime.
10 seconds ago, you're like, oh, it's a different framework that I'm stepping into, right? Like,
well, my guess is that reincarnation at least feels like this.
Right, exactly. So if I'm stepping into that framework, then I must also believe that I've been reincarnated.
Right, this
already.
is very unlikely to be lifetime number one in the scheme of
exactly
many lifetimes.
Okay, so that's neither here nor there. That's sort of just a silly aside. But I forget what we were.
IFS.
Oh, right. So So I've done lots of parts work, lots of memory reconsolidation and hierarchy, and looking at this. And right now, I've sort of accepted that I may be deferring my awakening. And yet that's all this this recognizing this deeper thing is also part of my vow. It's just a part that is emphasized less right now. So that's sort of where I'm at.
Cool.
Okay, to me, and like feel free to push back or to disagree. To me, this sounds like your practice of the Jade is you're finding the thing that you're connecting to, the love. And then you're trying to like do all this other stuff, like once you're in that space. It just hearing you talk, and I don't know if this is true, but just the feeling I'm getting from hearing you talk, it feels like you're much more connected to the love when you're, sort of like quote unquote giving up the path. And
well, that is what the love is telling me to do. That is what the love is telling me to do right now, to the extent, to the clarity I have in terms of connecting with it. That is what it's telling me to do. And so I don't know if I'm more or less connected to it in either case. I might be more connected to it when I'm practicing, but when I am connected to it, the thing it's telling me is out of compassion for the world to work inside it.
Can I give a metaphor? So like if I were to do this in real life and my wife is like, so I go to my wife and she's like, go do the dishes. And then I'm like, go to do the dishes. But I'm like, oh, I should be with my wife. And then I go to her and she's like, go do the dishes.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like I'm
That's
closer
exactly
to
right.
her when she's talking, but like there's this like connection that we have if I'm doing the dishes that
Exactly.
if I'm there listening to her telling me to do dishes.
Exactly right. That's a great metaphor.
Right. So to me, it's like I don't like the language that you're using where you're like giving up the path, because it's like it feels like you've graduated from this like beginner relationship with the great love of like talking to, right? Like when you first date, like you're just always together and talking and stuff. And then as you progress your relationship, you're like, I'm they're picking up my kid and my wife's not here and she's doing some other stuff. And we're still connected, and the connection is still deeper and stronger than it was when we were dating, even if there's not as much like infatuation or whatnot.
Yeah, that's right. So there is in fact something you are giving up by deferring enlightenment. Many things you're giving up, of course, but on a personal level, you are suffering for longer.
Right. That's the thing I'm wanting to push back on. It doesn't sound like you're giving up enlightenment. It sounds like you're giving up the like path of sitting alone in a cabin.
That's right. That's right. So
And feeling
so ideally,
more in love
yeah.
when you're like in service to humanity or to other people.
That's right. That's right. That's right. And that's sort of the thesis here at Monastic Academy, is that
Suffering that you choose
through
isn't really suffering.
is that not just that. I don't know if I would agree with that statement, but not just
sorry.
that.
Go ahead.
But that so the thesis here is that through awakening you can address existential risk, and through addressing existential risk you can become awakened. And so ideally I'm practicing as I'm going through my day. Ideally I'm actually deepening my practice through these tasks and actually being able to have insights that way as well. I'm not as good at that. It's a higher challenge level. But ideally that would be the case.
Right. So I think that's probably more new to you, right? Like if you're spending the 3 months practicing on your own, then like you've built up skill and experience in doing that. And now that you've gone to this new thing, like you're kind of starting again, right? But
that's right. And my whole life I've spent not practicing well, doing things, or not, so it's the part of the challenge level is simply overcoming that.
Right. Okay. So now that we've reframed this, so you've been, this is how I like to frame it, and then you tell me if you like it or not, if it resonates. So you've been doing this other practice, like the alone or within the academy, and now you've moved on to like sort of stepping outside, like a little bit more outside into the world, and your practice is much more like, it's much more praxis than practice, almost. Like you've graduated.
If I knew what praxis meant, sure, that sounds right.
It's like doing the thing versus
yes,
practicing. So
sure,
it's like
sure.
like you're kind of like now, instead of like being in medical school in the classrooms, you're like, I want to be a doctor. As long as I stay here, I'll be a doctor. You're leaving the med school and you're going into like residency.
That's right. That's right.
And you're like, I'm giving up studying to do residency. And I don't think a doctor.
That's an interesting way to frame it. I think there's value in framing it both of these ways, in framing it as a sacrifice and also in framing it as a graduation. I think there's value in framing it both of these ways.
I think there is a sacrifice that you're making, right? Like, because you could learn so much more by just sitting in you have to deal with patients, and like they sometimes say
exactly,
it means nothing. And if you could just be in the textbooks, you would learn so much more. You know, like medicine would be so much easier if it wasn't for the damn patients. But like, you're also missing the point of medicine if you're not treating people.
Yeah.
So that's how I'm seeing it. You resonate with it? Also, you seem a little distracted.
No, I'm listening. Yeah.
I have a separate thread. I have two questions, but I'll pick one of them.
Yeah.
As a long-time meditator now, what's your relationship with suffering at the moment? Do you still suffer? Is it less? Is it more? Is there a particular suffering you're working on it this week?
Yeah, I still suffer. If I didn't suffer, that would be another indication, of course, that I'm awakened. What's my relationship to suffering? I still don't like it.
Fair enough.
I still have this question. It's another way to restate the question I had earlier about, do I really want this awakening thing? Is suffering really the thing? What about like joy? What about passion? What about excitement? Maybe I want to focus on those rather than just get rid of suffering. But suffering still sucks. I still don't like it. And I'm trying to get better at not turning, say, pain into suffering. Just simply when a thing is bad, not trying to push it away. When a thing is good, not trying to grasp onto it, but simply letting it be.
Cool. Is there a particular suffering for this week that you've been working on, or recent practice?
Yeah. Well,
You wanna
I don't
share?
want to. I'll just say some. I'll talk about what I'm doing recently with my romantic relationship. I've been going through various challenges with that, and one of the things I'm trying to do now is simply take radical responsibility for anything that comes up and ask, what could I have done differently, rather than trying to push or blame it on my partner.
That's great.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That sounds like a really awesome practice.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Is it working so far?
Yeah. It's starting to bear fruit, I think.
Ooh, exciting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, my other question was like, we've come up with a few times. You said I'm not an expert in, like, I want to be like extra gentle, but be like, it sounds like you're allergic to being an expert or something. Like, what's going on?
Well, there are
that?
things.
There are reasons.
There are things that I would say I am an expert in.
Okay.
So I would say psychotechnologies related to overcoming procrastination and non-coercive motivation, I would say I'm an expert in.
Right.
I would say the underlying technologies of transformation, emotional transformation, and how that process actually works and how to facilitate it in people, I am an expert in. But I don't want to claim expertise in something I am not actually an expert in. And so, and I want to, like those things, I can talk very confidently about many things and walk people through things and be very, very sure that I'm I'm not like totally misrepresenting or getting things wrong. But many of the things we've talked about, I
maybe we picked
could really be totally off the rails. And so I want people, I sort of want to, I don't want people to take me too seriously when I'm in those areas.
All right. I want to know about emotional transformation. Like what's that thing?
What's that?
I'm now talking to expert Trinley about emotional transformation. How do I change at an emotional level? Like,
and so emotional transformation, of course, is one way to talk about it. There's many different ways to talk about it, and okay, so there's so many places I could go here. Let's start with the very basic thing, which is that there are where do you start? Okay,
you want like a worked example? Like, let's work through an example.
Yeah, let's do that. Sure.
Okay, is there like a priming question? Like, what are the emotional problems I'm having this week?
It doesn't even have to be an emotional problem. It could be a behavior that you're dealing with that you don't want to be doing. It could be imagery or thoughts that come up. It could be an emotion that comes up. It could be any of those things. A recurrent pattern that you want to
Let me just name a thing that I'm like, oh, what have I been working on this week? Right. So I have this experience that like occasionally people ask me for things, and what comes up internally is this like strong resistance, like don't demand things from me, don't tell me what to do, don't like, and it's like they're not necessarily big asks or like whatever, but I'm like I feel this internal resistance that is really quite uncomfortable and suffering in itself. So is that suit?
That's great. That's great. And so we'll talk about some principles, and we can run through this live. And of course, you've seen me run through this live, Elliot, before with other people, and so have you, Daniel, in my on my podcast. Okay, so the first thing to understand about most of human behavior is that it is coherent, meaning that it's very, very rare that something is just like, oh, this is like a evolution, like put in this fear of people, so I'm feeling scared right now. We're like, oh, like, I just, there's some habit dopamine loop, and so I'm just doing this for no reason because it got reinforced. Typically, there can be some of that, but usually on top of those things are coherent learnings based on beliefs about yourself and the world. And so if you are doing this behavior or feeling this thing, it's because there is some structure of things you have learned about the world, and those things are, well, in the Buddhist framework, they're always wrong. But they also have some wisdom. They're also based on real experiences you've really had, and they may even be picking up on some really important things to know. So that's like a starting point for the type of emotional transformation I do. You start from that assumption.
Some
it doesn't
sort of
mean there's never,
validate?
yeah.
Validate its existence very strongly. It's here for a good reason as a principle.
Well, you don't have to validate its existence, not necessarily, not yet. But in terms of trying to understand what we're doing here, that's what we're trying to understand, is that we're trying to connect to these real beliefs. Mm-hmm. So these are called parts in IFS. They're called limiting beliefs in a lot of these sort of self-helpy circles. You can also access them through memories, in which case they're often called traumas. Mm-hmm. And you can also access them through metaphor. And so a lot of like Jungian work and dream interpretation and stuff is doing that type of move. But I claim you're accessing the same thing with all of these. Mm-hmm. Great. And you can also, of course, physical sensation. Physical sensation is a big one. The goal is integration. The goal is integrate all of the wisdom from these parts and let go of all of the clinging, the delusion, the part that's not that's not useful, that's not true. And in order to do that, there are three ways that we could integrate this part in the way I just said. So there's a part to whole integration, in which you do the full thing I just said. You can just integrate this into your whole being, where your whole being can now act from the wisdom of this part, and but there's no fixed view anymore. Every part of you has just integrated it, and there's no more. You can't find a part when you look for it. The wisdom is just in all your parts in your what IFS calls self. Then there's a part-to-part integration, in which you might have one part that says, I don't want to, it's good to clean my room. Another part that says it's bad to clean my room. And at the end of the part-to-part integration, the part that wants to clean your room understands all the reasons why it's bad to clean your room, and the part that doesn't want to clean your room understands all the reasons why it's good to clean your room, to the point where you can't even tell the difference between the two, because they've integrated each other's wisdom, and they're like, okay, well, sometimes it's good to clean your room in these circumstances, and sometimes it's not good to clean your room. Right. And then there's simply, you can do functional layering, which is a form of healing where you're not doing this deep reconsolidation or integration, but you're simply saying, okay, I'm going to add new part on top, or I'm going to slightly change this part's beliefs so that it's more functional for me in my everyday life. And all of these are useful in different contexts. You're always aiming for the part to whole integration, but sometimes you need the other ones in order to get there in the long run, or various reasons. Okay, so how do you make these shifts, these part-to-part integrations, these part-to-whole integrations? As far as I can tell, this happens through a process called memory reconsolidation. So memory reconsolidation, and when we say memory, again, memories are one way to access these things, and you can also access them through feelings and metaphors, but it's all called memory reconsolidation. Don't get confused. And so memory reconsolidation is a way to activate. So they used to think that basically you had memories, and then they were in short-term memory. And then if you reinforce them in certain ways, they went to long-term memories and they were consolidated. And then they basically just stayed there for your life. And you could sort of try and hide them by conditioning something else. There's another neuron that you strengthen even more, so that one tends to fire. But then there's always this problem that you can have what's called what's the name for it? I can't think of the name for it, but basically your old pattern can come back up and get very strong again because it's sort of still there in your memory. But they discovered that there's actually this other process called reconsolidation, where memory or emotional learning, or again, you can access it all those ways, can come up. And then it becomes pliable again. It can change, and then it can be reconsolidated back in now that it's changed or let go of completely. And so the way that memory reconsolidation works is that you need to activate the old thing. While it's activated, you need to have a visceral felt sense experience of it being challenged, of it being removed, and then of it being challenged, of it saying, "Oh, this doesn't make sense with the old understanding, the old way of seeing." From there, you then need to have some new way of seeing, and then that needs to be learned. That new way of seeing needs to be reinforced and learned, and then that is how memory reconsolidation happens.
So we try and work this through the example that
yes.
How do I do that?
Okay, so I want to do one last bit of theory, and then we'll do that.
Go.
And so the reason that people find this hard, that our emotions aren't changing all the time, and it's important, of course, that they don't change all the time, because the things we learned are important. When we have strong emotions and we have emotional learnings, because that mattered to us, and we don't just want that to willy-nilly go away. Is that there's a sort of inherent tension between keeping a feeling activated and challenging it. So typically, when the way you might naively do this is you're scared, and you're like, there's nothing to be scared of, there's nothing to be scared of, there's nothing to be scared of. And the way that you connect to that is you suppress the fear, and you're like, oh, phew, I'm feeling less fear, nothing to be scared of. Done my great memory reconsolidation. But really what you've done is, rather than challenging it at the same time as activated, you've stopped activating it through the challenge. So very, very hard problem. How do you keep it activated while challenging it? So this is where my work on the reconsolidation hierarchy comes in, which is it's a process and a path for gradually making it safe for the thing to be active, and gradually and slowly bringing in more and more extreme and harder forms of challenge. and at some point the reconsolidation happens, and then you can it happens, and by really setting that firm foundation that allows it to stay active, and then gradually increasing the challenge in a way that's very light and gentle, you can increase the chances of success. And so I created this, and there's different ways to tie different modalities into different parts of it, similar to the stages of change model, where different forms of psychotherapy are good at different stages of change. Different tools are good at different levels of this reconsolidation hierarchy.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing I've done with it is, I realized later, is that, okay, not only can you take different parts of these different modalities and put them in, but actually you can actually map these modalities to, like, some modalities are already following this thing, and that's why they're so effective. So if you look at core transformation, or the left-go belief process, or some of these other metaphors of movement, some of these really, really effective modalities, you find that they're already following this structure. So how do you go with your pattern of sometimes could you restate it again?
Sure. So let's go with, like, my partner asked me to do a thing, and internally I get all this resistance. It's like, don't tell me what to do, and like stop making demands on me, weaving in a little bit of NVC demand stuff. I'm receiving it as a demand, whether it is or isn't. That's how I'm receiving it.
Got it. Okay. So having done that, right, we need a way in, right? So there's these 4 ways in that we talked about. There's the bodily sensations, there's the memories, there's the metaphors, and there is the beliefs, the semantic beliefs. So one way we can do this is through working with the memories and the semantic beliefs using what's called the left-go belief process.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so we can try and walk you through this. And we can walk you through this. And as we're going through, I'll explain how this is going through the reconsolidation hierarchy.
Sure.
Okay. So the first thing I want to do, so the sort of the framing of all of this is that I don't know if you guys have probably talked about like neural annealing and stuff on your page, but there are certain states that are more conducive to this reconsolidation and certain states that are less conducive to it. And so just very briefly, let's take a moment to center and ground, get into a little bit of a higher energy state that allows more change to occur. So one way to do that, how do we want to do that now? Well, let's just do a very simple one. Let's just focus on the breath. And in particular, I want you to focus on one aspect of the breath that is very salient to you right now. It could be the movement at the belly, or the chest, or the air going, going from the nose and hitting the top of the lip. It's one aspect of your breath that feels salient, and I just want you to focus on it. If you find yourself getting distracted from that, I simply want you to release any tension, release your attention from the distraction. I want you to relax any tension you had from the distraction, and then I want you to return to the breath in that one aspect. And if you want to make your breath more calming, you can do that. Or if you just want to be with the breath as it is naturally, you can do that as well. And we're just going to do that very quickly because I know we don't have a lot of time. And there's a whole hierarchy to get through. But you're now, there's many different high energy states. This state of relaxation is one high energy state in terms of the high energy that we're talking about. And so from this place, the first step is what we call activation. And so activation is simply making sure that this part is actually active, is actually coming up for you. And we want to be as activated as we can be to really be feeling it, and not so activated that you can't work, you can't think, you can't do anything. You can also talk about, of course, blending is another way to talk about this. But for the let go belief process, what I want you to do is I just want you to put yourself in one of these times when this came up for you. I want you to see what you were seeing. I want you to hear what you were hearing. I want you to feel what you were feeling. I want you to imagine one of these times when you were with your partner and you were feeling this way. And I really want you to run through it step by step and really get yourself feeling it now. Let me know when you really have gone through that at least once and really feel like you're connected to it.
Yeah, I mean, like I pulled up a handful of memories.
Great. Okay. And so the next stage is introspection, or understanding, or exploration, which is really mapping out what's going on here. And in the let go belief process, one way we can access this is we're going to go from the memory to the semantic belief. And so a question you can hold. And I want you to, when I say hold the question, I mean, don't think through the answer, just hold it and see what arises from this part of you. The question is, what is the thing I must believe about myself or the world in order to think and feel this way? What is the thing I must believe about myself or the world in order to think and feel this way? And just hold the question and see what arises from this part.
This way, as in order to feel the trigger thing that I'm feeling?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Don't really have all that much coming out in response. What is the thing I must think or feel in order to be feeling this way?
What is the thing I must think or feel about myself or the world?
Self or the world, right?
Yeah.
I got some stuff.
It's actually, what is the thing I must believe about myself or the world in order to think or feel it, to think and feel this way? What is the thing I must believe about myself and the world in order to think and feel this way?
There's a little bit of stuff about trying to find the right words. Something about I'm not required to follow this demand or something, or the like.
Yeah.
Or the
Okay.
This is a demand as well. Like,
yeah, this is a demand. And so now we can go into a little bit more introspection. Sometimes the answer comes up right away. Sometimes we need to dig a little bit. So one way to do this is to go to the hierarchy. This is a demand. Okay, so what's bad about that? So what? It's demand. What's bad about that? And then you hold that question. Okay, what's bad about this? Why does this matter? And see what arises.
And I'm receiving it as an obligation, and I don't like obligations.
You're receiving it as an obligation, and you don't like obligations. Okay. So, but what's bad about obligations? So what? So it's an obligation.
I don't like them.
What's bad about that? I know you don't like them. But
like
what's bad about them?
What's bad about?
Yeah. What's bad about them?
Oh.
No. What's bad about
Uh.
In other words, there's just hold that question, and there's a reason you don't like them, right? That there's coherence behind that feeling.
There's like a bad feeling I have around obligation.
Yes, exactly. And so, what is bad about them that causes you to feel bad, right? Remember this original assumption we had that there's coherence behind these feelings. There's a reason that you feel bad.
There's kind
What's
of
bad about obligations?
a like physical somatic sense that is kind of heavy and pulling and uncomfortable.
Okay.
That I don't like.
Yeah.
Is that enough, or am I going in the wrong direction?
Well, for the let go belief process, we could do somatic stuff and continue the process that way. And that's normally what I would do. So the great thing about this process is that at every stage of the process, at every step in the reconsolidation hierarchy, whatever's coming up, whether it be a memory or belief or a feeling, there's something to do to move forward. So let's just do that. Okay, so take a moment to really connect to this feeling. Yeah. We're going to keep doing introspection. And just hold this question for the part. What do you want for me? Take this heavy feeling and ask it, what does it want for you, for Elliot?
Quick answer of like freedom or...
Freedom, yeah.
Not to be like trapped or locked in some way.
Yes, yeah. And so one answer to what's bad about having an obligation is that it limits your freedom.
Right, of course.
Yeah. Okay. So, and then how do you know? Here's another question. How do you know? So if we want to go find the higher level sort of controlling parts, we can ask why or what. Why is this bad? Why are you doing this? Or what's bad about this? And we want to find the lower level, the more fine-grained parts, we can ask how. So how do you know that someone is that something is an obligation, that something is a demand? And just hold that question again. Don't think about it. Just hold it and see what arises.
My two answers are one is like how they ask it, and two is like how they respond if I say no.
Got it.
I'm
Great.
like, no, I don't want to do
and
that.
Then
if I get like punished for the no.
Great. And then how do you prevent people from stealing your freedom when they do that, when they react in that way, when they react in one of those two ways?
I'm not sure. I'm trying to work out if the answer is I activate this thing that like pulls me away, or if there's something else.
Right. The question is more, when that thing is activated, what is the strategy there to avoid your freedom getting taken?
My sense is it pulls my attention inwards a lot, like internal, interiors, and then that's like I definitely can't do the exterior thing that I've been asked because I'm like suddenly interior.
Got it. Great. Okay. So,
and my own resistance.
Right. So there's some belief here that like when people ask, when people talk to me in a certain way, they are trying to, or they are taking away my freedom And the way to deal with that is to go internal, so I can't do what they ask. Yeah.
Yep. Sure. Yeah.
Perfect belief, and we could go deeper with that, but that's a totally fine belief. So it's a little bit of a complicated one, but that's okay. We've got the strategy, we've got the activating event, and we've also got the value in there. So it's pretty complete in that way. Okay, so connecting now to this belief and this feeling that when people act in this certain way, they're trying to steal your freedom. And the way you prevent that is by going inward, noticing the feeling associated with that, connecting to the memories. And what I want you to do is go back and back and back and try and find earlier examples of this feeling earlier and earlier and earlier, and try and see as you go back earlier and earlier, if you can find a memory that may have been formative, might not have been like a formative memory, but may have been formative early in developing this belief.
Interesting. I got like a couple of like homework in high school ones that are like that.
Okay.
And then like
that's pretty good.
People telling me what to do when they're like shutting down, sort of.
Yeah, homework in high school. Okay, so feel that. And then I want you to notice if there's any instances of that feeling even earlier.
I think there are. There's one maybe mid-primary school, similar sort of being told what to do.
Okay.
Internal.
Great. Are there any memories or sort of senses of memory? Sometimes you have like, oh, I have a sense that this happened, but I don't have exact memories even earlier than that, or no?
I have like a pseudo memory that's got something to do with my siblings, but I'm not really feel the rest of the context. Just like, oh yeah, there were siblings and there was some sort of blah blah blah.
Okay, well, let's go with this primary school one then.
Yeah.
What I want you to do is just, as much as you can, to the extent that you have the ability to, just like you went through this memory that happened with your partner and you felt it, what you were feeling, you heard what you're hearing, do the same thing for this. Is it homework in primary school?
It was like an art project.
Okay, for this art project. Yeah, so just
teacher was
imagine
do it this way, and then I
yeah.
was like, no, I want to do it my way, and then I kind of like shut down and did it my way, and then
yeah,
the teacher was like sort of disappointed, but like these things are weird.
Okay, so then that's not quite. Yeah, I want you to go even earlier, because there's not quite. You didn't quite learn that strategy here. You already had it.
I think so. Yeah.
And you, yeah.
Yeah. No, I think I might have made up the strategy.
Okay.
It's part of
Great.
it.
Perfect.
Like,
Perfect.
what was it like at the time? Yeah, I kind of like when, how am I going to get around this? Oh, I'm just going to shut down and keep it to myself.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. So what I want you to do, so we're going to reactivate it now, because in order for memory reconsolidation needs to be activated. So I want you to run through it once and really feel what you were feeling at the time.
There's like a frustrated, there's like another thread of stuff that I've been working with recently, of like not being seen, which is a little bit of that in here.
Yeah.
So
that's okay. And you're also feeling this, this other thing about freedom, right?
Yeah. I mean, connected.
Okay. Great. So, we've now done some activation and some introspection. We found something to work with. Right now we're working with a memory and a belief. And of course, there's somatic things, there's feeling as well. So it's kind of bringing multiple things of these in can be very powerful. Now, the next aspect of the hierarchy is acceptance. There's various types of acceptance and aspects of acceptance, but the very simple, the very simple form of acceptance that they use in the let go belief process is they simply say, do you see how it was totally reasonable at the time, given who you were and as a child, to develop this belief that when people talk in a certain way, they're trying to take your freedom, and the way to deal with that is to withdraw? Does it seem totally reasonable? And can you really understand at the time why a child you would do that?
Totally.
Great. Perfect.
I actually suspect like another detail has come up that I think this person had like a language barrier as well. And so they were trying to tell me to do a thing, but they didn't have good English. And so then there was like I was missed, and then they demanded, and then I did that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So this is really good, because so now we can begin to slowly bring in that challenge. And one of the lightest forms of challenge is simply to question. And so what I want you to do is I want you to take that memory, and rather than being inside it, you can imagine sort of putting it up on a TV screen on the wall and watching it over there. And so the question you can ask yourself as you're watching that is, okay, so it totally be reasonable meaning that when a person's talking to me this way, they're trying to take away my freedom, and that the way to respond to that is to withdraw inward. But what are some other reasonable meanings I could have drawn from this memory, other than the one that I happened to draw in the moment, which is the thing I just said? So is anything coming up for you as you're looking at this?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I just said about language barrier, there's another thing of like, I think I triggered this person a bit. And so they were like, they tried to like impose because I had triggered them or something.
Okay, like, so the language barrier thing is like, this person is having trouble understanding me and getting frustrated, something like that.
Right. Well, they like, I mean, it sounds quite silly when I describe it now, but this person was like an art teacher and was imposing this is how you should do the art on me. And I was just like, bleh. And like when I asked like, oh, why were they doing that? It's like, oh, it's because I triggered them, or maybe some quality of like, I was more of a productive rather than a perfection, like a beauty artist. So I was creating, it was like a sculpture or something. And so I was creating more rather than like perfecting and beautifying. And they were trying to push me down the beautifying. And I was like, that's, that was like, in retrospect, that was the teacher's thing, not my thing. And that they were trying to impose it on me. And that's why it very well, because it was like, no, this is my artistic freedom. And they were like, you should do it this way. And I was like, no.
Gotcha. Yeah. And so it might not have been so, but that doesn't necessarily, it's not necessarily a contradictory meaning, right? It might be that this is their thing, and therefore
it wasn't about me.
Impose on my freedom. Yeah. And so there is some belief about you here. So what is the thing that you think it said about you when they did this? Because that's probably the deeper cut here.
Yeah, there's something like, I inherited a belief from them that was something like the way I was doing it was unacceptable, or
and what does that mean about you if the way you were doing it is unacceptable? What does that say about you?
Well, that I had to hide it, or like the only way to live with both my like I want it this way and they're like you're doing it wrong was to like bury my internal or something.
Right.
Okay. I don't think I fully took on it like therefore I'm bad or anything. It's just
that's good.
To like hide mine in order for theirs to also fit.
Yeah. Okay. Strategy. Great. So so what other beliefs? So one meaning from this is that they are trying to take away my freedom, and the way to respond to that is to withdraw inward. Another meaning is that they're not trying to take away my freedom. They're just triggered.
Right. They had some other idea of what I was trying to do, and they were like trying to get the stubborn child that I was, successfully stubborn. To do it different way.
And so how about this interpretation? You can tell me if this hits or not. Sometimes when people react like this, they're trying to take away my freedom, but not all the time.
Sure.
Does that actually hit, or you're like, not really?
I don't know how it's like it's yes, but also it's not like wow, bang, explosion. It's like okay, not always.
Okay, and then Yeah, and then another interpretation here is, okay, sometimes, or in this situation, the best way to react to them trying to take away my freedom is to withdraw. But that doesn't mean it's always the best way to react.
Sure. I mean, I'm on board with that.
Yeah.
Seems like a thing that I could agree. Like maybe there's better ways to deal with it, and especially now as an adult, maybe there's better ways to deal with it.
Yeah. And now as an adult, is there a better way you could have seen to deal with it in that scenario? If you had like been there to give yourself advice or talk yourself through things?
Yeah, I think if I had like an adult advocate third party, I would have had them like sort of translating between that adult and me, and like, you know, the way in which this adult was like, you should beautify it, I would have had them translate to like, oh, this adult is suggesting or inviting you to try and beautify the thing. Would you like to do that? And have me as a child go like yes or no in that moment, or like, that's a nice idea, but this isn't imposition. This is just a, would you like to add more beauty? And then I might have had a choice.
And do you think that that there was a way you as a child could have done that, or you would have needed the third party?
Well, I think because of the language barrier thing, both myself and the other person couldn't really see eye to eye. Like I was also like, you know, probably about 7 or 8, and they were an adult with a language, like a different language. And so like it would, if we had a third party that could help us communicate, that would have been really quite helpful.
Okay, great. And then let's do a couple more. This is a little bit weird because we've sort of gone quickly through each of these steps, and we haven't really got to a deeper cut belief, and we haven't and so some of these alternative meanings aren't cutting as deep simply because the original belief probably wasn't cutting as deep, but that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like I didn't really take on one of these major beliefs, but I did this weird like suppress hide strategy.
Yeah, exactly.
Which makes it like I didn't decide I was wrong and then have to bury being wrong forever. I decided that I had to act in this strategy, and I buried the strategy.
Exactly. And what we want to do is, and so some of these things I'm doing is simply removing the generalization of that strategy, trying to loosen the generalization to give you more freedom to act in the future. So some of these alternative meanings are simply, oh, I don't always have to act like this. So are there any other meanings you could have drawn that you see from this?
Yeah, I think I'm sort of sitting with the like, what else would I have gotten translated through the third party adult? And I think it would have been things like, I just want to be productive, like from my side to the other party. I just want to make my things. I don't want to like, it's not currently where I'm at to make beautiful. It's more to like make the thing.
And what about I mean, is there any resonance to the thing, oh, this person was actually trying to teach me something that I didn't know, or a way of seeing that I wasn't seeing, and I just couldn't see that at the time?
Well, right now it feels like they're trying to sell me something that I don't want. Like, why don't you beautify it? I'm like, I'm an 8-year-old. I don't think in terms of beautifying things right now. So like, no, but maybe if I like validate my 8-year-old and let it grow up a bit later, we'll be able to see that.
Okay, great.
All right, now.
Okay, so let's. Okay, so that was questioning, and then the next level from that is beginning to directly juxtapose, directly encounter the opposite while the feeling is activated. So what I want you to do is you're going to jump back into the memory as if you're there, as if you're seeing it. It's no longer on the wall. You're inside it. And I want you to just run through it once as it was, and drawing the meaning that you drew, and just notice what that's like. Great.
The separation.
And the meaning that the way we defined it was something like, when people react in a certain way, they're trying to take away my freedom. And the way to respond, the way to avoid that is to withdraw. Okay. So now I want you're going to run through the memory again, but instead of having it go the way it did, notice what it would have been like to draw the meaning. Oh, it's not about me. The person is having trouble. The person is just having trouble understanding me and getting frustrated.
Yeah, there's some complexity here that my like character pathways to sort of make myself responsible for other people's frustration. So this is not necessarily a good thing. This is like playing into my pathology.
That's and that is
And
this is actually questioning your pathology, right? It's saying it's not about me. The person is just they're there's just a language barrier and they're getting frustrated.
Yeah. Okay.
But you might not be able to take on that meaning because your pathology wants to take over, in which case we can just move on to the next one.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to get my pathology to step down and be like, it was never about,
right.
It's never my responsibility, sort of. It's kind of a hard on my
Okay. So try this meaning. And again, you want to go through as if you were seeing this, as if you were seeing it, the situation this way. Oh, they're not trying to take away my freedom. They're just triggered.
I mean, yeah, I'm on board with that. I feel like there's more to it. Like, part of me wants to like peer into their triggers and to understand them better. And also, part of me is angry about the whole situation.
So just to be clear, sometimes when we do these alternative meetings, people think like, well, it's a negative, or I feel bad, or it's like, the purpose of it isn't to find the meaning that feels good. It's to simply notice that there are many different ways to see the situation.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's go that one. Okay. So in this particular situation, the best way to prevent my freedom being taken away is to withdraw. But in future situations, there might be other ways to react by going through it and drawing that meaning.
Yeah, that one's okay. I'm like, yeah.
Okay. Let's try the original one. When people react in this way, they're trying to take away my freedom, and the way to avoid that is to withdraw.
I feel like I'm more present to just anger underneath the whole situation. Like there's something maybe like searching for words, but something was projected on me, and then it was because it was projected on me, I had to deal with this whole thing, and I'm kind of angry about the whole situation.
Yes.
There's anger underneath here, and then there's like suffering underneath the anger, obviously.
That's right.
Which is becoming more clear as I observe the whole memory over and over.
Yeah, and I'm curious if they're well, let's just finish this up and then we can go there. Because I hear what you're saying, and we could just go with that. And again, that might be the right thing, but here we are in this example of going through the process, and here you are, very attuned to yourself, and a very good client and needing to use a more complex version of the process that is more fluid. So now, imagining the situation if there's a translator there, and saying, oh, they're not trying to take away my freedom, it's just a suggestion, with the translator there being able to help you understand that.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I'm gonna need a bunch of more validation of like what I was doing first before I can hear the other stuff. Yep. Okay.
Yeah. And then the final, again, with the translator, being able to communicate to this adult, so that maybe they are trying to take away your freedom, or they don't realize that that's what they're doing. But the way you're going to respond rather than withdrawing is to communicate. I just want to be productive. It's not currently where I'm at to do this beautification thing. Communicate what you want. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm okay asserting that sort of through the translator.
Yeah. And really imagine that and what that would feel like, and that belief that, oh, maybe the best way sometimes to respond is to communicate and express my needs. Yeah, great. Okay.
Wait. Let me sit with that a moment longer. Yeah, in present too, there's a way in which that still feels difficult, but like maybe it's okay and I'm willing to do it even though it's difficult.
Yeah. Simply one meaning you could draw.
Feels like a lot of my like earlier pathology is the like giving up around negotiations. Like it was just too hard to keep.
Right.
And so then I have all of these ways in which I am now noticing how I've given up sitting at the negotiation table and like,
that's right. So
I surrendered in order to escape the shitty situation, but now I'm like, wait a second, I need to retrain myself to stay so that we can get to a better navigation.
That's right. And so the issue here is that there's actually, of course, a deeper belief. We didn't really go and really try and get to that deeper cut. But there's some deeper cut here around not trusting that it's worth it, not trusting people will listen, something there that, of course, led to this behavior that you're like, oh, I'm just going to withdraw.
I think I'd call it like a self-abandoning behavior. Like, I was ready to drop myself and like, self-abandon.
Right. But here's a question now. When you look back at this, when you really look at this memory again, does it still feel like this memory, the obvious meaning is that, that when people react like this, they're taking away my freedom, and the way to respond is to withdraw. Can you still see that meaning, or does it feel less attached to the memory? And either answer is fine, of course.
So right now, when I look back, there's just a lot more complexity around it. Like that's in there, but there's this complex web of like all the things that were going on. And they were triggered, and I couldn't communicate, and they didn't have English, and like all of these things. And so it's not so clear. It's not the old clear meaning before of like you have to shut down. It's now like all this other stuff that happened.
Exactly.
It's like, great, so there's I feel different about the whole thing.
Yeah, and so now the real question is, and of course, when we talk about behaviors, there's often many complex beliefs underneath them, and so the behavior won't always change right away, even when you change one of the beliefs or the parts. But you can now go back to this original situation with your partner.
Just did that.
Ask, is there any different feeling around that as you return back to it?
It feels like I've replaced my prior strategy of just shut down with or like just resist, to like look at the complexity a bit more, which is not resolved, but at least it's like I got a step closer.
Exactly.
Like maybe I'll find something in that complexity.
That's exactly right. And ultimately, if you can ultimately, sometimes ultimately that's always the strategy. You just look at the complexity of the situation and you respond with the fullness of your wisdom.
I don't know about that bit. I've got step one, like look at the complexity. That one,
right.
We'll see what happens next time I look at the complexity. But at least I am.
Exactly.
This far.
Exactly. So, and so the more you can really let go of, okay, there was this simple belief and the complex belief. You can actually use this transformation, of course, to get into a deeper state and then to integrate that deeper state. And so this would be the last step after you've gone through this hierarchy. Of course, we could have gone to even more challenging if that hadn't been enough after the juxtaposition, but that was enough. And so then from here, we can integrate. And so just like at the beginning, when we got into the high energy state, when you integrate, you want to get into as high energy state as possible. And so one way to do that with the left belief process, we can ask, okay, so did you notice how you were able to change your beliefs and feelings?
Yep.
And if that's the case, is it true to you that then there must be a difference, or that you are not your beliefs and feelings? If you change your beliefs and feelings, then you are not your beliefs and feelings. Great. And so then hold this question. So if you are not your beliefs and feelings, who or what are you? And the answer may come in feelings or words or some other thing. But if you're not your beliefs or feelings, who or what are you? Yeah. Do you have some sense of that? Again, you don't need to put words to it if words aren't coming.
I have like a felt sense, but that's going to be really hard to describe.
Yeah, that's great. So the question is now, if you go back to that situation with your partner and you bring that felt sense and act from that, what would that be like?
I think I need to sit with that one for even longer.
Yeah.
The question's tricky. I don't know, that it's either not landing right or it's doing something else.
That's okay. Yeah. So again, this is I'm trying to go very fast through something that could be much longer and much more careful. But
no, I just feel it's not quite doing what it's like. It's not quite all like clicking or anything. It's like
that's exactly right.
Fighting.
Yeah,
it's
exactly
fighting.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, okay, wrong question. like we're now in a new argument or something. Like, okay, no.
Yeah, that's right. And again, this is okay.
I could probably sit with it on my own, and also in like
so just to go through what's happening here with integration, a little bit of the model around that. There's at the beginning, you can access your part through any of these four things. There's the memories, which are sort of the evidence for the thing. There's the felt sense, which is actually the thing that causes and generates the action. There's metaphors, which are ways to represent different aspects of this in a way that makes sense to your creative non-professional thing. And then there's beliefs, which is a way to represent this to your logical conscious brain. And so you can access it through any of those four. And then when we integrate, what we try and do is integrate all of those in as layered, deep a way as possible. And so when you imagine a example of you using this, that's an example of you creating a memory. You now have a way to access this through this way of seeing and doing it. And I often try to create memories of basically every conceivable way of accessing this, whether it's before or after or during, so that it reinforces away. And then in terms of the somatic, the feeling, what you try and do is you try and spread it as much as you can, and you try and turn up the intensity as much as you can. So this can spread both throughout your body, which is very good. Bodily integration. You can also, of course, spread through your awareness outside of your body.
Mm-hmm.
From the metaphorical side, I like to do a technique that I call the modality mind palace, where all of these things, we create a metaphor that holds in all of these things, the belief and all the memories you're creating in the metaphor, and you create this place that represents all of these things. You can go there, and there's this metaphor, and as I do these integrations with clients and with myself, they all connect to each other. So you can walk through this mind palace, and you have this sense of how all these different transformations you've done are connected and part of a greater whole. And then from the what's the last one? Oh, from the belief side, you can state, okay, what is the thing you now believe? And in your case, it was sort of just, well, it's complicated, which is, of course, a decent thing to believe. And so you want
there's
to
more nuance in the final situation.
Yeah, exactly. So there's nuance in how to understand and react to this.
And what happened? What's the best way?
Yeah, exactly.
In a non-overwhelming way. Like interesting and curious, and like, I feel energized about the possibility of doing that differently, rather than demotivated by the like, it's overwhelmingly complicated and I'm out. It's like, no, this could be a new path through, a new possibility.
Yeah, so just to summarize everything that just happened and everything I just went through, we're looking at this as if there's a reason for this behavior pattern. It's not just random. There's a reason for this feeling. We then access to high energy states. We allow ourselves to activate the feeling. We introspected on where it came from and what it was representing. We then questioned, or we then accepted it by saying, oh, can you see how this made sense at the time? We then began to having laid that strong foundation so that it could stay activated, we then begin to slowly do it. So first we questioned it by saying, okay, what are some other meanings? And you just, without really trying to challenge the original meaning in any real way, you just were asking, what other things could it mean? And we made some lists. And then we juxtaposed, we actually started to challenge it by saying, okay, here's what it feels like, here's what it would feel like do the other way. And then when the reconsolidation took place, at least a partial reconsolidation, you recognize there was more nuance in the situation. We begin to integrate that back into these modalities. So that's like a small, pretty long, actually. Sorry that took so long.
But comprehensive, long but very powerful, integrative, comprehensive method.
And so the left belief process, of course, is one way to go through that process. If you look at other things, basically, if you look at a really talented experiential therapist who does anything like Hakomi or IFS or this, you're going to see them basically sometimes in a loopy way, because you got to find a new belief or you have something, but going through this process.
Cool.
Yeah. All right. So I know it's pretty late, and I'm worried that
that also seems like a good time to wrap. Thank you for the process. That was super cool, and I have it on record. Like, I did change my mind or something, so I could go show my partner. She could be like, "Oh, that's nice." But thanks for coming. Thanks for talking about Maple and Monastic and the Jade technique, and thanks for all your time. It's been awesome fun.
Yeah, thanks, Elliot. Thanks, Daniel. It's super nice to reconnect with you both.
Yeah. Daniel?
Psychotechnology.